Hi there, students. Okay, here we have a writing. This is at level C2 for Cambridge proficiency, or something like an 7.5 to 8 at IELTs. Read the text below. Write an essay summarising and evaluating the key points from it. Use your own words throughout as far as possible, and include your own ideas in your answers. Okay, here's the text. Comment on care. In his perceptive book, A Leg to Stand On, Oliver Sacks describes how formal hospital ward rounds make patient-doctor communication virtually impossible. I have experienced this from both sides. As a junior surgeon, you are constantly at the mercy of your bleeper, forever shuttling between clinics, the operating theatre, the wards and the administration. The essential work on the wards is the ordering of tests and the scheduling of operations, and you resent anything that distracts you from this task. You begin to think of the patients as the enemy and of the nurses as your first line of defence against them. As a patient, one gets quite a different perspective. The doctors are hiding from you all day, and when they do pop up, everything has already been decided on. "Just a couple of questions," I stammered as the consultant's armada blithely sailed past. "Lie back," the nurse replied. "We're just going to give you a little injection." And here is the summary. Comment on care. Good, nice title. The text is a brief review of Oliver Sacks' book called A Leg to Stand On. Yeah. Of Oliver Sacks' book. I think I would just lose this word called. I just don't think it's necessary. The text is a brief review of Oliver Sacks' book, A Leg to Stand On. This book describes the conditions of a hospital that could be any of the many hospitals in Western countries. Unfortunately, many of those in other countries are much worse. So this book describes the conditions of, I would probably say the conditions at a hospital that could be, I think I would prefer might, could's not wrong, might sounds better, that might be any one of the many, we've got too many's here, of the, let's try that, so change many here, of the myriad of hospitals in Western countries. Unfortunately, many of those in other countries are much worse. So let's make this just a bit more interesting. Are significantly worse. What makes this description special is that it offers the view of a junior surgeon who has recently started working. That's a nice sentence. Therefore, he still reminds his perception of the same facts as a patient and includes it. He still reminds, so reminds is the wrong word, he still remembers. So he still remembers his perception. Yeah, his perception. I might make his perceptions of the same fact as a patient, and includes those as well. According to Oliver Sacks, when working as a doctor, he sees the hospital almost like a battlefield in which health workers are the defendants. So the defendant is a person in court. You are accused by the police and you go to court and you're a defender. So the defenders, in which a battlefield, in which the health workers are the defenders. Are the defenders. In the health work, in which health workers are defending, MD, are defending, DING, are defending, with nurses in the first line of defence. With nurses, I'm going to say as the first line of defence, to prevent, as far as possible, so as far as is possible, a direct contact. So as any direct contact with the leaders, with the officers, with the brass. They very often use this word brass as well. With the leaders, with the officers, with the officers. That is the doctors. With the attackers or patients trying to cross that line with their questions to doctors. So this sentence has got a bit long. Okay, according to Oliver Sacks, when working as a doctor, he sees the hospital almost like a battlefield in which health workers are defending, with nurses as the first line of defence to prevent, as far as is possible, any direct contact with the officers. I think so. Break here. That is the doctors. And then make this a different sentence, because I think that's enough. Yeah, I think that's got to a point. No, semicolon if you like. And then you can carry it. The attackers, or patients, the attackers, I'm going to put comma, or patients, are trying to cross that defensive line and put their questions to doctors. Doctors and nurses are arranging everything for the treatment of these patients. I think I would be happier with a present simple. Doctors and nurses arrange everything for the treatment of these patients, whom they regard as intruders into, no, without the into hospital efficiency. At this point, the book author, by definition, an author should have written a book. The author changes his standpoint. There is a volta, V-O-L-T-A. This is the change in a poem. At this point, the author changes his standpoint to turn to his role as a patient who feels that everything has been arranged without him, without any consideration for his opinions or feelings. It works better like that. At this point, the author changes his standpoint to turn to his role as a patient who feels that everything has been arranged without him, without any consideration for his opinions and feelings. The book offers the two sides of the same coin. That is very important because patients often complain of the coldness of doctors who deal with them as with figures, just like any figure consultant economist who needs to balance the accounts of a company. So who deal with them. So that is very important because patients often complain, it's a complaint but to complain, of the coldness of doctors who deal with them as if they were a financial consultant. As if they were a financial consultant who needs, they often complain, who needs to balance the accounts of a company. I think to balance a company's accounts, it's just short of the accounts of a company is not wrong, there's nothing wrong with it, but who needs to balance a company's accounts. It just reads more smoothly. In conclusion, we see how stressful the situation is for everybody. The doctor tries to justify their attitude towards patients as a result of, so the doctor tries to justify their attitude towards patients as the result of the great burden of work they have, I'm going to add a couple of words, they have to deal with. The doctor tries to justify their attitudes towards patients as the result of the great burden of work they have to deal with. That, I think, is the only point where health workers and patients agree. Good. That is, hospital conditions should be reviewed for the well-being of both health workers whose working conditions are far from optimal, and of patients who feel ill-treated at the worst of moments. At the worst of the moments, at the worst of moments. I'm going to change this. At a difficult moment in their lives. I think that this is the only point where health workers and patients agree. That is, hospital conditions should be reviewed for the well-being of both health workers whose working conditions are far from optimal and for patients who feel ill-treated at a difficult moment in their lives. This is very well written. I like it a lot. Most of the changes I've made are just getting it to read more clearly, more easily. Let's see. You've clearly done what you were supposed to do. This answers the question without any problem at all. Scribes not are at a hospital. Okay, mistakes. There are very few. There are one or two little mistakes, but there's nothing significant. It reads very nicely, and the whole thing is very cohesive. It joins together. There are lots of lovely cohesive devices. Therefore, unfortunately, according to it joins together very nicely. I think I'm going to give this 7.5 at C2. 7.5, 8, 7.5, 7.75. It's a good piece of work. Well done. So, enough. Take care.